Hello everyone and welcome back to another episode of Suzerain Kingdom of Rizia edition, where I think things are going okay. We did pretty well diplomatically last episode. We've got a good amount of authority coming in, not too much budget, but we've got a good amount of energy coming in, and next turn the hydroelectric dam should be in as well, which should give us even more. So my hope is to use that energy for good purposes, either for profit or for diplomatic favours for other countries. For now, though, we've got the Sovereign Memorial Commemoration. The National Mausoleum, high in the hills above Port Drazen, embraced me with its stately presence. I was here for the annual Sovereign Memorial Commemoration, a ceremony honouring the former monarchs of Rizia. Having left Hugo in charge of overseeing the event, I had arrived early before the formal ceremony commenced to have a moment to myself. Adorned with statues and inscriptions of monarchs from eras long past, the mausoleum stood as a witness to the enduring legacy of Rizia. In its hushed corridors I sought solace, not as a king, but as a man burdened by the echoes of history. I had also come to honour the memory of my late wife, Lena. Lena? Let's go with Lena, whose resting place can be found within these hallowed grounds as well. Vina, of course, was by my side, and she was holding a bouquet. Feels like we were just here. I miss her so much. It does feel like we were just here, doesn't it? Your mother's presence is timeless, and it's only right that we revisit this place. Timeless, maybe, but sometimes it feels like the memories are slipping away, and revisiting only makes the ache worse. It was my own pleading that steered us into that storm. We should never have set foot on that boat. It's not your fault, Vina. You couldn't have predicted it. It was a tragic accident. But I feel responsible. If I hadn't asked her to go, she would still be here. It may be difficult to accept, but your mother's passing was part of life. We can't always comprehend the reasons behind such events, but it is important to find strength in the memories and support each other through these challenging times. I'm not sure memory is enough to give me strength. We walked the rest of the way in uncomfortable silence until we had reached Lena's final resting place. I watched as Vina said a silent prayer and set the bouquet in a marble vase next to her mother's sarcophagus. We shared a quiet moment, without words. I stared at the grave, allowing memories of Lena and of the boat accident to flood my mind. I was on the verge of becoming lost in thought when a voice called to me from behind. Well, there you are. What are you doing here? She hadn't attended a Sovereign Memorial Commemoration since father's passing. At my age, surprises are as rare as long-grey hairs. Don't act as though my presence is some extraordinary revelation, and for the record, I can still navigate these halls without assistance, thank you very much. Vina, it's good to see you. You're looking lovely as ever. You too. Vina went to her, and they exchanged a brief embrace. We'll catch up later. I'm meeting Manus for a walk before the ceremony. He didn't feel like joining you here? What do I say here? We felt to be more appropriate to visiting the inter-family only. If by we mean you. I agree with your father. Just because he's courting the king's daughter doesn't mean he has special privileges. Her eyes swept across the room, come to rest on Lena's grave. Forgive my lack of decorum. I should treat this day with the gravity it deserves. Gradually she drew near, her eyes conveying unexpressed sentiments. She reached out and took Vina's hand, giving it a gentle squeeze. She was an extraordinary woman, your mother. I'd even go as far to say she was like a daughter to me. I wish I had known her as well as you did. I didn't know you felt that way about her. Come now, son. You know very well I'm not one for garish displays of emotion, but it's true, I did grow to love her dearly. She smiled in fond reconciliation. Recollection, even. I sometimes change the words in my head. I remember the exact moment my feelings towards her changed. It was right after the Civil War broke out in Wayland. You two were at Palace Resna for dinner, and Lena and I absconded for tea after you and your father got into another one of your rows. Up to that point, I was adamant that Rizia should accept as few refugees as possible. But I spoke with your late wife about the situation. She made such a convincing case for empathy and kindness that I was literally moved to tears. She had this way of seeing past politics, straight to the heart of the matter. The very next day, I persuaded Valera to open our borders. There were tears in Vena's eyes. That's beautiful, I had no idea. You described her exactly. Every time I make a royal decision, I try to see the humane side of it, the way she would. Who knows what insight she would have to contribute were she alive today? I know she would have been proud of the person you'd become, Vena. Despite Vena's attempts to conceal her emotions, the subtle quiver in her lips, and a deep sigh betrayed her inner turmoil. Please excuse me. Vena hurried out of the room before anyone could respond. Losing a parent is hard, especially when they love you as much as Vena's mother loved her. Speaking of love, I know you've approved of Marinus and Vena, and I support passion, but I might not be as digestible for the rest of the house. Either way, it needs to happen sooner rather than later if our family is to secure its place on the throne. But I'm getting sidetracked. In case you're wondering, which I know you are, I'm here to finally pay your father a visit after finding this. My mother reached into her handbag and held up a weathered envelope. Sure, we'll read it. A love letter from your father, the first one he ever wrote, and I want to honour him by giving it back. That's very thoughtful of you. She took the envelope back. It seemed only fitting. Come, let us honour him together. My mother left the room, and I followed behind. We made our way down the great hall, past the resting places of the great leaders, and some not so great who came before me. It wasn't long before the light from the eternal flame, a single torch placed at the late king's sarcophagus, symbolizing a monarch's enduring reign, guided us the rest of the way. As we neared, my mother's pace slowed, as if overwhelming waves of memories pressed upon her. Are you okay? Yes, I've never been better. The flames flickering glow cast dancing shadows on the path. We stopped just before we reached my father's stone encasing. There you are, and we both fell silent. In the royal tradition, deceased kings were initially entombed here. However, upon the passing of the succeeding monarch, a solemn ritual was observed, relocating the late king to rest here alongside their forebears. If you don't mind, I'd like to say a few words to your father. I'll give you some privacy. I gave her some space to allow for a moment between the two of them. She spoke to him in a hushed whisper, for much longer than I expected. Whatever she had to say was evidently meaningful, perhaps something she'd been holding back, especially considering their strained relationship for most of his life. When she was finished, she took out the love letter and placed it on the lid of the sarcophagus. I took this as my cue to return. May it rest with him, carrying the memories of a cherished connection and the legacy he left behind. For better or worse, his legacy will live on. It's a reminder that our actions reverberate through time, something you'd be wise to consider in the decisions you make, my son. Acknowledging the past's impact on our present can indeed guide us towards a better future. I'm glad you agree. Our name carries weight, son. It's not just the actions, it's how you carry the responsibility that defines the legacy. I can't escape the shadow of his choices no matter what path I forge. Maybe not, but you can cast new shadows that speak of redemption and resilience. Perhaps, but I'll paint a legacy that transcends any failings or shortcomings of the past. You speak as if this royal house is this plague. You have this power to redefine what it means to bear that name. Sometimes the most profound responsibility is the ones we inherit, not by choice, but by destiny. Inheritance comes in many forms. I embrace whatever responsibility destiny throws at me, be it triumphs or defeats, much like my father. Bringing Zeal back into the fold will rectify his mistake of giving it away so freely. He chose the lesser of two evils, and in doing so we retain the throne. The only mistake would have been inaction. We can place the blame of its loss until the end of time. What's important is that we pick ourselves back up and work towards reclaiming what was lost. Agreed, it's time to move forward. Though of course the further forward we move, the closer we may get to hitting a dead end. Speaking of which, I've heard whispers about your escapades with House Azaro, a family harbouring their own ambitions regarding the throne, and you know how risky rumours can be. What should we do here? I don't really want to confront her about her religion, but that's fine. I do hear whispers about someone practicing desnurity. A sharp intake of breath escaped her lips as the unexpected revelation hit her. I don't know what you're talking about. I have first-hand accounts that say otherwise. Mother remained steadfast, her gaze piercing into mine, but it didn't take long before she relented, releasing a sigh of resignation. It's called faith for a reason. It's not something you casually discard, like shedding clothes for a different outfit. If you're looking for an apology, you can forget it. I will not renounce my beliefs to appease anyone's expectations, and I'll be damned if you think otherwise. The languid sound of her final words reverberated throughout the chamber. I honestly don't care what you believe, I just wish you'd been forthright about it. My beliefs are my own to hold, and I don't owe an explanation. If forthrightness is what you seek, understand that some aspects of me are not open for debate. Now, if you excuse me, I seek solitude by your father's side. I will go. Contrary to your assumptions, you should know that I intend to uphold Father's legacy with the same dedication as Rizia's. That's why I'm steadfast in rejuvenating this nation, and paying tribute to his memory in accordance with his wishes, and to do right by him. As the old saying goes, actions speak louder than words. So much so that the police are outside, as normal. I parted ways with my mother and rejoined Vina, just as the sovereign memorial commemoration commenced, marking the beginning of the celebration of my father's memory and the kings who ruled Rizia before me. Okay, that is probably the end of the turn, which means the hydroelectric dam will be done. Now, is there anything we want to try enact so we get some more budget for next turn? Welfare privatisation, but that's not a ongoing thing, as is the landowner's tax. Of course, all these things that we do are going to have consequences, not necessarily bad ones, but consequences nonetheless. I may well allow the free press, I'm not sure. I'm definitely not going to change to state religion, because that would not go very well. I could do a large global sale. That's a lot of energy to spend. But it would give us some economy going forward. And we'd still be back at 5 energy. I'm going to sign the large initial global energy sale to give myself a lot of money to do some stuff with. Probably want to do some kind of rail or some kind of transport thing, because they did say that the transport was not going very well. We could indeed expand our naval facilities and some other facilities. So many things we can do. The question is, what do we do? could go for equal gender pay, but that's going to knock down our budgeting further than we can really afford. I want something to generate some more money, kind of permanent budget increase going forward. I will sign this geological survey initiative, because that could lead for a lot of economic opportunities, so we'll sign that. Lots of assignments, that's good. It's not a very long assignment that's going to have to be done. And we will leave it there, so we'll continue and see what happens going forward. The Art of War, that's worrying. Why is it called the Art of War? That's very concerning as to what might happen next. Goodness me, let's hope nothing too bad happens. Okay, House of Delegates visit. I think that's the only thing we can do, so we'll go straight in. And we do have our authority, our budget, and our energy refreshed. Speaking of which, is our... I actually can't check this now. I want to see if the dam is done. I'm just trying to remember where it was supposed to be built. Industrial Centre. Yes, three per turn from the hydroelectric dam, but also we've got the Morella gas exports, which is why that is balancing out. But it's good that we've got the dam sorted for sure. Okay, once more I took my seat next to Hugo in the middle of the House of Delegates. My uncle watched calmly as the representatives began filing into the room. Where have we got that money from? We've got some extra budget per turn now. Grace trade, increased income tax, legal drug revenues, the MITZ revenues, it might be that. Morella trade, the RRG revenues. It's going to be one of those. 343, I'm pretty happy with that. My uncle watched calmly as the representatives began filing into the room. I don't see many fresh faces. It's a relief that the RPP didn't manage to make any gains over last time. Even if that was the case, I'm under no obligation to take the party's advice. That's true, but we don't want them getting any big ideas. Derdia, positioned behind the House Speaker podium, put the wooden mallet aside. I call this meeting of the House of Delegates to order. She bowed in my direction. Thank you for coming, Your Majesty. Manus nodded his assent from his usual place behind the opposition podium. Daria flipped open a binder. The first item on our agenda is an update on Zeal. My constituents are eagerly awaiting the end of Zeal's agreement 3-year probationary period and the return of our land. However, I've been fielding concerns that Rizia's so-called Gold Condis border ban is damaging certain lucrative international partnerships. More to the point, he has alienated Rizia's Gold Condis population, with whom we were already on shaky ground. I will say that the process of granting rights to Rezex has been far from frictionless. It is a matter of consistency, Madam Speaker. It was a mistake to fully integrate Rezex citizens while restricting rights for other migrant groups. Thankfully, the trade deal seems to be proceeding as planned. If and when the territory is finally returned, there are questions about how it will be reincorporated into Rizia. Manus put up a hand. Objection. What questions? Zeal has always been a part of the province of Brennus. That may be true, but in the interest of stability, reincorporating it under Rizia Imperialized jurisdiction is the obvious choice. It is the same reason why the Palace Administrative District has not yet rejoined the Cardessa Montaclar. That decision was due to ongoing border difficulties. Zeal faces no such danger. How can you say that after the Friendship Day incident? There is no telling what Wellin will do, even if his Zeal is returned without a fight. At this stage, Wellin will not want to risk damaging our agreement, and if they do, my province can handle it. The volume in the room grew louder as the delegates began arguing amongst themselves. I turned to Hugo. Shouldn't Zeal citizens decide who governs them? Don't go that route, Your Majesty. Holding any kind of election in Zeal opens the door for Wellin to intervene. Eventually, Daria motioned for order and the delegates quieted down. Moving on to more pressing topics. Next on the agenda was a discussion regarding the current religious climate in Rizia. The current opposition speaker has some comments regarding what he sees as encroachment of Ruikism onto everyday life. I don't see the need to air these complaints. Go on, Mr. Sazon, I'm happy for you to talk. As Madam Speaker mentioned, my party and our constituents are worried about the government's religious overreach. We see it in our tax code, for example. I understand your worries, but the alignment of Rizia's laws with its religious practices is essential for our spiritual health and unity. Where you see alignment, I see an attempt at forced indoctrination, which will only create resentment in the long run. Of course, I acknowledge the long tradition of Ruikism in this country, but I have received complaints from Dasnurist-owned businesses that have had to close since the tax on non-Ruikists was introduced. Ultimately, religion should have no place in the economy of a modern nation. But look at the income the tax generates. It can be used to help the less fortunate in line with Ruikist principles. Precisely, Your Majesty. The opposition is overlooking the decree's obvious benefits. I would caution that several of the major Rumburgian corporation, based in Rizia Imperii, have voiced objections to the new tax. However, they have signalled their willingness to comply for the sake of maintaining friendly business relations between our countries. Rayna slipped down, and Derdia continued smoothly. While we are on the topic of religion, I must mention the growing pressure from Golkondist communities to lift Rizia's blasphemy law. I saw Hugo raise his eyebrow. Together with the border ban we implemented it in agreement with Whalen, they point to it as evidence that the Crown discriminates against Golkondism. However, these complaints are only coming from the fraction of the populace. The majority want our law to stay in place. My uncle looked relieved, and he nodded emphatically. It's not discriminatory to crack down on terrorism. I must object, Your Majesty. We have no proof that the Golkondists we are turning away at the border are terrorists. Silence, Mr. Sazon. We have seen the influence of Golkondism on our neighbour Derdia. Our citizens do not want Rizia to fall victim to the same fate. Even if the blasphemy law is revoked, Rizia would never turn to Derdia. Our traditions are too strong. I should hope so. To end on a more positive note, I am happy to inform His Majesty that the Rizian public has a favourable opinion of the crowd. Hallelujah. They are happy that our energy stores are stable, as they should be. Business owners are appreciative of all we have done for them. As expected, the nobility of Cardissamon Taklar still approves of His Majesty's reign, as does that of Brennus. All in all, though we cannot rest on our laurels, we are still far from the universal approval of the Liza era. Objection. How can we gauge approval when our people lack freedom of speech? My subjects love me. End of conversation. No. I suppose you have a better sense of what the public thinks of me. As a matter of fact, I do. Rizians of foreign descent still lack the same rights and privileges of everyone else in the country. Compounding the misery is the fact that they cannot speak out about it. Not quite a rosy picture as Madam Speaker is painting. If that's true, then I have work to do. I'm glad you see it that way. My party has suggested a number of proposals that might improve the situation. It's our hope that His Majesty will enact them. I will have a... I'll not promise the opposition everything, but I will think about it. That is all we ask. Derdia closed her binder and looked up. That concludes today's session, unless of course His Majesty has any closing remarks. No I don't. This is your space, not mine. Derdia nodded graciously. Then till next time, ladies and gentlemen, Glorious Axa Rizia, that's hard to say. I repeated the phrase along with Hugo and the other delegates. My uncle and I remained seated as the session adjourned. I better get to work passing some degrees. The RNC has some good proposals, but you need to give Barrister Rava everything she is asking for. He picked up his attaché case and paused to look at me. It's been a while since the two of us caught up. I hope you'll do the honour of paying me a private visit once you're back from the trip to Derdia. The honour would be all mine, Your Grace. Hugo rose and bowed. Until then, Your Majesty. I stayed in my seat until the room was completely empty. Was Derdia right? Was the public happy with my reign? And if she was, where would I go from here? Indeed. Okay. So we've got this coal mine available. Oh, gold mine, yes please. Let's go have a look at the gold mine. That's going to be worth a pretty penny, and I imagine the coal one would also be worthwhile to do. Here we go. Harvest coal mine development. Has the potential to bolster our industrial sector, embracing further growth and development within Rizia. However, prospective environmental and social challenges loom, necessitating prudent management and forward-thinking policies to preserve ecological and societal balance as we stride towards economic prosperity. So it will give us 1 NG per turn on construction. It's going to take another 2 turns to be completed. Let's have a look at the gold mine. This is more like it. Envisioning a prosperous future, the Council proposes the construction of Callus Gold Mine, directly influencing Rizia's economic trajectory and reinforcing House Taurus through enhanced Vale and Curious investments. Although the prospective financial gains glitter with promise, concerns bubble up from the local vineyards, fearful of detrimental impacts on the renowned wine industry. The decree brings to light a pivotal decision: embrace a lucrative yet disruptive opportunity, or preserve the tranquil stability of fruitful lands. That's frustrating, because the wine industry is important. It's one of our bargaining chips during diplomatic engagements, especially with the Kingdom of Swordland, who we trade with for whiskey. That's unfortunate. I'm not sure we can go for that. The coal mine, I'm more willing to sign off on. Gives us another energy per turn. I think we're doing okay for energy at the moment, so we'll hold off on the coal mine just for now. What else can we do? Do I allow the free press? You know what? We need to do something to help out the locals. We'll sign free press, some media freedom, and no state censorship. Okay. That has also knocked our authority down, though, quite a bit. So we probably want to think about something which would give us some more authority going forward. We have some money, we have quite a bit of energy. But without any authority, there's probably not much more we can do this turn for now. So we'll hold on to things for the time being, and use our budget and energy for any diplomatic crisis that may emerge. Let's also just take a quick look at the armed forces. 8 infantry, 3 support, 2 tanks, 1 military ship, 1 submarine, paratrooper, and a Golden Guard division, along with a mountaineering division. If we get some more equipment, we might be able to train some more stuff, because we have a good amount of manpower. But we need more... Really, actually, we need more trucks and we need more equipment. Back to the Royal Decrees. Is there stuff we can buy? That requires... Let's see, that requires... authority. Could buy some military equipment here. But until we get some trucks anyway, it doesn't really matter. Tanks, support... Is it support vehicles we want? I'm guessing it is the support vehicles, the trucks here. Because at the moment we can't really train anything. But my hope is that we can do everything diplomatically and not have an issue. Not have any issues going forward. Monkey's port and naval shipyard expansion is inviting. But I don't have the authority to do so. I possibly should have signed that instead. There's not much we can do about it now. Now that we might be able to gain back some authority somewhere. If I go back up to order, up the top here. So anything which gives us authority. I imagine most things take authority, not give authority. Yeah, pretty much everything here is something where we spend authority, but I'm hoping we might be able to get that back somehow, one way or another. That's fine. We got the morning in the palace. Let's go have a look. What's going on? Early in the morning, I heard a soft tap on the door to my bedchambers. It was Pabble, coming to wake me at my usual time. Good morning, Romus. I hope you slept well. There was a tinge of sadness in his voice. What's going on, Pabble? Are you okay? I'm fine, thanks for asking. He began drawing open my curtains, then stopped and spoke to me in a forced, casual tone. How are preparations going for your royal visit to Derdia? I wonder if he's upset because we had sex with our Minister of Defence. How are preparations going for your royal visit to Derdia? I'm hoping to contract their mercenaries to use in Zeal. I see. I've heard they're very skilled fighters. He paused again, as if in deliberation. Finally, he walked over to the chair next to my bed and sat down. I don't know if you've been made aware, but many Rizians of my persuasion have fled to Derdia since establishment as a Golcondas Republic. It's one of the only places in Mercopa where relations between members of the same sex are accepted. Fascinating contradiction. How can such an extremist society allow homosexuality? Golcondas view intimacy between men as the most sacred form of love. They say it strengthens bonds on the battlefield. As for women, as long as they accept their role as providers and childbearers, they may consort amongst themselves if they wish. It's not perfect, but I understand the desire to live openly amongst fundamentalists rather than cower behind closed doors. Something must be done to improve the status of your kind here at home. I'm happy you agree, and the sooner the better. He tossed the morning paper on the bed. Look at the bottom of the first page. Man, 33, beaten to death in Monkey's prison. The deceased was identified as Mateus Montavlo, a courier for the Cantuavo vineyards. Oh no. Oh. Oh no. That's the guy that Pabble was dating or something? And I think we might have accidentally got him into prison via the Golden Guard. Oh, Pabble, I'm so sorry. I don't think the game really gave me a choice. I didn't really want to pursue it any further, but I guess at that time it's illegal. Was he arrested because of my investigation? Pabble shook his head. Our encounter was obviously neither his first nor last. I warned him to be more careful, but until homosexuality is no longer a crime in Rizia, people like him, like me, are going to keep dying. I'm working to achieve parity between commoners and nobles. No. I don't have the authority now, but I will. I guess we say that. It's a challenge, I know. Not even Queen Liza dared to imagine it, but Rizia is ready now. The Dasnurus will hate it though. What am I supposed to tell Rumberg? Isn't Queen Beatrice a proponent of secularization? She'll understand the need to separate state laws from religious ones. It's not just about what I would want. This is a universal struggle. Think of the example you'd be setting for the rest of the world. You're right, I have a historic opportunity. I've got to seize it while I can. The sooner you do, the more lives will be saved. He stood up. I'm late to oversee breakfast. I'll leave you to dress yourself. I'm sorry about... what was his name? Oh, it's too late. I'm sorry about your lover. Thank you. He bowed and swiftly left the room. After taking a moment to collect my thoughts, I dressed and headed downstairs for breakfast. Oh, poor Pabble. What's this going to cost to decriminalise homosexuality? I imagine quite a bit. Not necessarily money, yeah, for authority, and is not going to be very popular. Homosexuality is decriminalised with immediate effect, acknowledging the inherent dignity and equal rights of all citizens, irrespective of sexual orientation. This decree abolishes any legal sanctions pertaining to consensual same-sex relationships, affirming the state's commitment to human rights and non-discrimination. It represents a significant move towards embracing a more inclusive and tolerant society. And the only people who'd be vaguely positive about it would be Lorento and Elena. Lucita, Sal, Hugo would not be fond of it. At the moment I don't really have the authority to do so. If I can get round to it, I will do so, Pabble, out of respect for you. Right, onto the world map. Where are we going now? We're going up to Zeal. Funding resistance. Let's have a look. There's an option to intensify funding for local resistance movements against the Vezek administration in the contested Zeal territory. This manoeuvre aims to escalate diplomatic leverage, exerting pressure for the reintegration of Zeal into Rizian sovereignty. While increased support for the resistance could significantly sway the Vezek government's stance, it also risks destabilising the region, potentially justifying Ren's claim to retain Zeal for national security reasons. I'm not funding Surmina, but I will increase funding to the Ariana Taurus Association. Yes, there's now a growing pro-Rizian movement in Zeal. I need to make sure it doesn't turn violent, however. It's gathering strength, but funding this is still much cheaper than funding a war, is what I would say. More involvement in the Vendonism civil war. As the civil war intensifies, the monarchist forces under Prince Consort Kabwen Sangtam even, launch a major offensive against key strategic cities held by the revolutionary factions. Battles in the industrial heartland of Rakkara, the port city of Penguvi, and the fortified positions in Tamaren have reached a critical stage. With the conflict's outcome hinging on these decisive confrontations, the request for Rizian support comes at a time when intervention could significantly alter the war's trajectory. You're having an infantry division and nothing else. I can't keep on supporting you. I've only got so many divisions for myself now. And we go to Derdia. This is going to go well. Standing on a remote mountain plateau outside of Nail, the civil garrison was the headquarters of the Derdian government, as well as the dwelling place of its leader, Supreme Wiseman Yorga Azmal. For our meeting today, Azmal had granted me the rare permission to enter his inner sanctum. After a lengthy drive up steep, curving roads, our motorcade parked just outside the garrison gates. Titus and I met Sarah as we entered our respective vehicles. I confess that I do not know what to expect, Your Majesty. I have studied Golconda's compounds like these successfully, but have never been allowed inside. I'm surprised you study religion that you despise so much. I do not despise the Golcondas, Your Majesty. I still have hope that they will return to the fold. The heavy gates swung open, and a group of Azmal's guards ushered us inside. The garrison grounds were much larger than I would have guessed, almost the size of Port Drazen's old town. A gleaming silver pillar rose up from the centre, surrounded by a cluster of administrative and religious buildings. Greenhouses, storage silos, and living quarters lined the perimeter, separated from the inner circle by a clear, natural stream. The first residents we saw were women in identical white dresses, drawing water from the stream and carrying baskets of vegetables to and from the greenhouses. They are seekers, Your Majesty, so that through their physical labour they will gain the mental clarity they need to begin their pursuit of Golconda. They do all the dirty work while the true believers lounge around doing nothing. The work of the disciples and adepts is no less rigorous, Your Majesty, but yes, the seeker role is particularly thankless. As the guards led us closer to the pillar, the sounds of men's voices could be heard. Short, sharp shouts emitted in perfect unison. The disciples. They practiced purification of the spirit through strict martial arts regimens. And right above that, adepts work mainly in the spiritual and intellectual realm. They make up the majority of Azmal's council. and we emerged into the centre of the garrison. In front of the pillar was a training ground the size of a football field, flanked on either side by white marble temples. On it, some 4 dozen men were engaged in combat drills. Titus watched in open admiration as they executed a complex choreography of strikes, blocks, and counterattacks, each punctuated by a forceful cry. A gong chimed in the distance. Almost instantly, the disciples spread out to form a perfect circle around us. Jorga Asmal, dressed in the same robes I've seen him wear at the Alliance of Nations, stepped out from their midst. "Welcome to the Silver Garrison, Your Majesty." "Your men are strong, battle-ready. Let's butter him up a bit. They still have far to go, but thank you." His smile curdled as he turned to Sal. "So, Grand Wiseman, we finally meet." "I've been looking forward to it, Supreme Wiseman. Shall I lead us in a Ruicus prayer ceremony?" For this special occasion I had something different in mind, a traditional Derdian jewel of generosity. Sal's face turned white. "I know better than to engage your contest in a duel, Mr. Supreme Wiseman. I read of this ceremony, Your Majesty. It is a polite show of skill, not an all-out fight." "Correct, Grand Wiseman. No weapons, no bloodshed. Each leader represented by a champion of his choosing." He spread his arms wide. "Talum Estali Zilak Nalin." The circle of men flattened out into a long line. Asmal slowly walked from one end to the other, then back to the middle. He stood in front of a particularly tall, well-built disciple and bowed. The man took a step forward and returned the gesture. "I will be represented by Lauren. His participation in this duel shall be his final challenge before his ascension to the rank of adept." The rest of the disciples applauded. Sal politely followed suit. Asmal turned towards Titus, and my body tensed up instinctively. "Captain Gordian, I've heard tales of your fighting prowess, both before and after you were serving the king. Am I right to assume that you've brought this man as your champion, Your Majesty?" Ooh. My problem is, if we don't do this Jewel of Generosity thing, he's never going to respect us, but Captain Gordian's not going to be too thrilled either. We need to keep him on side. I don't want him to die. But I can't serve as my own champion. I will serve as my own champion. Everyone went silent for a second. A brave proposition. "Your Majesty, this man looks like trouble, even for me." "I've got to respect my hosts, right? What could be more respectful than stepping into the ring myself?" "If you insist, sir, I'll be standing at the ready in case you need help." "This is highly unorthodox, Your Majesty, but of course there is most of Golconderism." Asmal cleared his throat. We and the disciples stopped speaking. "As His Majesty has declared it, so it will be. The King of Rizia will duel against my champion. Each fighter will now have 5 minutes to prepare." Lauren nodded his assent and walked away. He knelt on a patch of grass and raised his arms skyward in prayer, his face a mask of concentration. Any advice, Titus?" My bodyguard spoke in a near whisper. "From the exercises I saw earlier, I noticed a slight weakness on this man's right side, so punch with your left arm if you can." A short while later, another gong sounded. The disciples formed a tight circle around me and the man Jorga Asmal had called Lauren. The Supreme Wiseman stepped between us. The duel will last 10 minutes, or until one opponent acknowledges the other's superior skill in combat. Should a fighter draw blood, the duel will immediately be called off. It results void before the Lord. You bow to one another, and the duel will commence. He stepped back into the circle, and he and the disciples began a slow, deep-voiced chant in Derdian, as Lauren and I bowed to each other. The moment we began sparring, it was obvious I was outmatched. Lauren moved with a fluid unpredictability. His blows seemed to come out of nowhere, but landed with tactical precision. The closest thing I'd ever received to combat training was a few fencing lessons as a teen. More often than not, I had skipped them to spend time with Pavel. Yet somehow, miraculously, I was holding my own against the Derdian fighter. One left jab here. I threw a jab with my left hand to hit his shoulder, and he staggered backwards slightly with a smile. Say nothing, keep fighting. We continued sparring, Lauren mostly dodging my blows with ease, but occasionally allowing one or two to land. Just don't say anything. The 10 minutes were almost up. My opponent turned his back briefly to prepare for his next move. Fuck your god and hit me, the king commands it. Hit him while he's off guard. While his back was turned, I threw my most powerful punch yet. He took it in the ribcage with grace and allowed himself to collapse to the ground, holding up both hands in a sign of concession. The Lord has blessed us with a very beautiful fight. Very well done, Your Majesty. Lauren, you may not have won, but you're still my champion. You'll make a fine adept. He definitely was pulling his punches. He took his disciple's hands and kissed him tenderly on the lips. The surrounding crowd erupted into cheers. Titus looked round uneasily. Is that normal here? Unfortunately, Captain Gordian, it is. Sal grimaced. St. Rurik would despair what they have done to his sacred teachings. Do you not agree, Your Majesty? Perhaps now find the glorification of violence more disturbing than the sight of two men smooching. Both were a mockery of Rurikist values, and we turned our attention back to Asmal. The disciples had begun to disperse. An auspicious start to our meeting. This way, please. Titus stood outside as Sal and I followed the Supreme Wiseman through a door at the base of the pillar. A staircase led down to a softly lit room, its walls lined floor to ceiling with bookshelves. There were no tables or chairs, just a number of comfortable-looking cushions on the carpeted floor. Asmal gestured for us to sit. This is the very heart of the garrison, Your Majesty. I never make a political decision without consulting the teachings of St. Rurik. I spend my time listening to my people, Supreme Wiseman, not saints who died centuries ago. A mistake. The will of the people is capricious, whatever that means, while the wisdom of saints is eternal. I suggest you read on the embrace of divine differences. It might lead you to treat gold contests differently in your country. Perhaps I have been harsh on gold contests in the past. I am willing to make amends. Your words will only have meaning when they are followed through with actions. You would not have come here today if you did not want something from me. But first, we must discuss your so-called blasphemy law. His eyes were fixed on Sal. The Ark Sanctuaries of Plavo, Benevian, and Yales are three of the most sacred sites in the Rurikist religion. It is not fair that my people were denied access to them. When you were allowed to enter them, you crowded out the real Rurukists to the point of damaging one of our most precious sanctuaries. If you wish to limit the flow of visitors to your Ark Sanctuaries, we will not oppose that, but I suspect your law has never only been about overcrowding. It is no secret that the majority of Rurikism leaders regard Golcondeism as a taint on our religion. A taint? Golcondeism has millions of practitioners, all of whom would testify that we are following the one true path that Rurik has laid out for us. Doesn't enlightenment through violence directly contradict Rurik's teachings? Not violence. As Rurik wrote, one must hone the discipline of the body as well as the spirit to guard the virtues I can't speak today, bestowed by the divine. Yet, in the quiet whisper of peace, truth and righteousness take root and flourish. You're both right. Both men glared at each other. We don't have to agree with each other not to practice diplomacy. Supreme Muslim, can we not get around this? This is what Derdians want, Your Majesty. I'd be a bad leader if I did not strive to provide it from them. My people have mined your gold, built your weapons, extracted your gas, yet they are barred from their religion's holiest of places. If people want to partake in our prosperity, they must assimilate. They must seek those who seek freedom of religion are very welcome to return to Derdia. No, let's talk about this. At least Derdians and Rizia are compensated for their labour. How many years before one of your seekers see a cent of wages? It is forbidden for a seeker to do work that enriches another. They only toil on behalf of themselves and the community. I know the strife Rizia is facing. If you would see reason and lift this unjust ban, there is much we in Derdia can do to help you. Can you promise that your people will respect the rule of law in Rizia, whether or not it clashes with Golcondeism? I cannot control what Derdians do in your country, but I will help you preserve order of the three Ark Sanctuaries to the extent that I am able. Sal looked at me with warnings in his eyes. You tread a dangerous path, Your Majesty. I do not know whether Rizia can tolerate an influx of Golcondists. Much as I'd like to lift the ban, I currently lack the resources to pass such an impactful piece of legislature. He looked at me as if he was trying to judge whether I was serious. Very unfortunate, Your Majesty. There is nothing more we can accomplish today. I beg of you both to get out of my compound. He gestured towards the door. Sal stood and looked him in the eye. It is not too late to repent, Supreme Wiseman. I can say the same of both of you. He ushered us out of the room and up the stairs. The sun was still shining brightly as he emerged from the base of the pillar. Outside, Titus was sitting by himself, his eyes on the group of disciples, exercising some distance away. On seeing me, he rose and snapped to attention. Your Majesty, shall we go? I hope Asmel's mending gave you any trouble when we were gone. They wouldn't dare, Your Majesty. Asmel extended his hand to me. We'll shake his hand. He returned my handshake with a firm grip. The sounds of sung hymns and clashing swords accompanied us as we made our way out of the compound. I knew that I would never see the Silver Garrison again. I don't think we were ever going to make any meaningful progress with him, to be honest. It just was never going to happen. But we will call things there. I feel like we are making progress. I'm just worried about Zeal. I'm worried about Palace. Energy is going well. I'd say our budget has recovered. It's now authority. That's lowering down. And I don't particularly see a way of fixing that unless maybe I need to kind of help the religious groups, but that's not going to happen. Maybe the traditions and the power projection we can try fix. But all that to come soon, indeed. In the meantime, thank you so much for watching. Take care. Bye-bye.